And I think we are live. Welcome back to the Friends Validator YouTube channel. I'm your host and co-founder, Juri Maibaum. And today I have the pleasure to welcome Jelena to the show. She is the CEO and co-founder of the Noble blockchain, which is a brand new Cosmos chain. So let us not hesitate any longer. Jelena, thank you for joining once again.
Thank you for having me, Yuri. I feel like there's a lot to catch up on since we last met each other in Medellin and talked about all things Cosmos, interchain security, native assets coming to the ecosystem. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, the last time you were on the show when we talked about governance proposal 72, funding Neutron. So yeah, so many things have changed since then. And I read your thread today that you posted, I think yesterday or so, about your journey in the crypto space, which is 6 years old so far. And you mentioned that you recently left Informal System to work on Noble full time. And can you maybe explain to us what vision you are approaching now with Noble? Because I want to touch base here on one thing that you mentioned in this thread, which was that you want to be a bridge builder between the old and the new. So what is this all about, and what has this to do with Noble?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I mean, we can back it up a little bit. So, I mean, where to start? I mean, for the past few years, I've had the great pleasure and excitement to be working pretty deep in the crypto blockchain kind of world. I mean, I could give a little bit of a background, just kind of what I've been up to even before Cosmos. So yeah, back in about 2017 or so, I had a good friend that was working down in the valley. I'm from Toronto. I'm from Canada, and he was working on making an investment in a new project called Definity. So, before 2017, I got really kind of obsessed with Bitcoin and just generally the notion of kind of sovereign money, and then of course from there got pretty obsessed with Ethereum. I don't know if a lot of people know, but Ethereum was actually founded in Toronto. A lot of the co-founders, including Vitalik, are from Toronto, which is my hometown. And so, anyways, I was pretty obsessed with kind of the whole notion of crypto and blockchains. And then fast forward to about 2017, things are heating up with the ICO boom, and there's a lot of funding and activity and excitement. So a friend of mine, as I mentioned, was making an investment in Definity. So that was my first kind of foray working full time formally in the ecosystem. And so moved down to San Francisco, worked down in Palo Alto, made the commute every day, which is like a 3-hour, 2.5-hour round trip, which I think shows kind of how dedicated and kind of excited I was to be working in the space. And anyways, joined Definity very early days. I think when I joined, there was maybe about 12, 15 kind of people working for the project, going to the office every day. And that was amazing. So I stayed there for a few years, did a lot of things on community development, kind of growing the ecosystem, a lot of things, on around adoption. And that was great. But at the end of the day, I had to come back to Canada. And so I ended up leaving the project, and then was briefly at Cello for a few months, helped them with their kind of public testnet and supporting them pre-mainnet, which was great. And then joined Informal. So that was almost 3 years ago that I joined Informal. I'd been following the Cosmos ecosystem for a while, and was watching in 2019 like the hub launch. Like there was like a YouTube live stream. Actually, a lot of people at that time in the Definity office were like, watching, like, is this thing gonna work? Like, we had it up on the big screen. Anyways, was always a huge fan of Cosmos, and whatever, we can talk a little bit about that, but I feel like a lot of the viewers probably are in alignment on why the Cosmos ecosystem is so powerful. But yeah, anyways, was following the project. Informal kind of reached out, and yeah, joined them, and then that ended in about January of this year. So I left to work on Noble full time at that point. So that's a lot. I don't know where you want to dig in, but yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, that's a pretty long story that you have had so far in the crypto industry, and obviously you also experience a lot of crazy things, like most of us did especially in the past couple of months. But we will also dive deeper into that. But yeah, getting back to the present. So at Cosmoverse 2022, you announced that native USDC will come to the interchain. And back then, a lot of people were anticipating kind of a circle blockchain that will be issuing these USDCs and leveraging interchain security. But now with Noble, this vision slightly changed, if you want to put it like this. So could you give us a broad overview what Noble is all about, this brand new Cosmos chain that just came to life?
Yes, definitely. So, let me maybe just begin with how Noble and this kind of native USDC kind of project even kind of started. So, when I was at Informal, my big role there was working with the engineering team to help take interchain security to market, right? So making sure that when shared security, via the Cosmos Hub goes live, there's actual projects that will be using it. Prop 72 was a big effort to achieve this. And there was also kind of other kind of parallel efforts to make sure that this would be an attractive feature. And I can't wait to see how things play out in the kind of immediate term. But as we were thinking about kind of the killer kind of use case for shared security, definitely something like Neutron, which is a permissionless smart contracting platform for DeFi and liquid staking and things like this, made sense. But it also made sense to consider, what if we had a chain secured by the hub that would do native asset issuance? And so this is an idea that I pitched actually to Zaki, who we had a long debate. Actually, I remember I was living in LA at the time, and I called him and kind of pitch this idea. What if we had, again, a chain secured by the hub that would do native asset issuance over IBC, leverage IBC, leverage all these properties. And he was pretty skeptical, actually. He was kind of like, I don't know, like this, doesn't make sense. We talked for like 2 hours on the phone about this. And so, there was this big debate, but it was an idea. It was an option for how we could get native USDC in Cosmos. And so he took it back, kind of slept on it, called me the next morning and was like, okay, I think this could be a good idea. Like, let's just try to work through this, workshop it, spec it out, kind of put together a document. Like, let's talk about this more deeply. And so we did. And then Jack and his team at Strangelove, Jack was really excited about this idea. And so pretty much the three of us kind of put together this proposal. We shared it with the DYDX team, who would be a huge kind of obviously customer or kind of user of this of native USDC for their platform. And also we pitched it to Circle. And at the same time, this was something that was extremely needed, because it was pretty much at the same time that Terra was collapsing. Like, the Terra collapse took like a couple of weeks. It didn't all happen on one day. And so, I can't exactly remember kind of where the overlap happened, but it was pretty much around like the same time. And so, we pitched it, and kind of Strangelove took on the role and really at a critical time to actually build Noble, or what would become Noble. And that's really when kind of the partnership and the working relationship kicked off with Circle. And so, when we made the announcement at Cosmoverse, there was a little bit of kind of misunderstanding around the chain itself, because a lot of people thought, oh, this is like Circle building the chain, or this is a USDC chain, which is not the case, right? So like Circle is an incredible organization. They're truly innovators, I believe, in digital asset design and in stablecoins, of course. But at the end of the day, that's what they do, right? They're not building blockchains. They're not doing validation. They're not doing any of this kind of stuff on chain. They're an issuer themselves, right? And so I think this was very attractive opportunity for them specifically to issue in Cosmos, which is ultimately what is now going to happen very soon. And I think at the end of the day, and we can talk about this a little bit more in detail, but for issuers or for other stablecoins, like Cosmos is a tricky place, right? Like, where do you issue your asset? Like, how do you preserve fungibility? How do you preserve a coherent kind of user experience and things like this? And so That's what Noble is trying to do, right? We kind of sit in this spot where we can provide something that is very useful to other app chains, like a DEX, like an AMM, like an order book, like a DeFi protocol. But at the same time, we can also provide a very useful service to, you know, an entity that is looking to sort of be in the cosmos. And so, you know, that's really what we're doing. And again, at Cosmoverse, you know, it wasn't, let's say, very clear that that was the vision, just because there were still things that we had to wrap up and kind of define. And at the time, Noble as an entity or even like full-time team didn't exist, right? Like I was working on it, but I had other priorities as well. Jack was working on it, but he had other priorities as well, you know. And so now really we're structuring this properly, trying to formalize kind of everything, and that's why, you know, I left and I'm working on this now. So hopefully that made sense on kind of the what happened at Cosmoverse and kind of what's happening at now. But you know, you've been there since the beginning, so like if it makes sense to you, then I'm happy.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it's very, very important to clarify this. I already also see a lot of questions in regards to intelligent security in the chat. But before we do that, let us dive deeper here. And what we just started to talk about is this relationship also with Circle. So just to make things straight, so you basically had the idea to launch your chain, an issuance chain, and then you pitched it to Circle, and Circle said, hey, that's a wonderful idea, and we are happy to provide this liquidity, so to speak. But there was never the idea that Circle would launch the chain itself. It was that you guys had the idea, and now a team was being formed around it, right?
That's right. That's right. Yes. So, you know, again, like this question of like, how do you issue native USDC in Cosmos is something that they had been exploring for a while, right? Because it is a very vibrant, kind of top three, you know, kind of ecosystem. And so, you know, in fact, for I would argue pretty much since IBC launched, they had been kind of asked, you know, trying to figure it out, you know, try to solve this kind of research problem, or sorry, this development challenge. And yeah, I think finally, you know, a Noble, or what would become Noble, made a lot of sense, and we kind of proved it could work, and you know, we worked very hard, and I can't emphasize enough how much Strangelove has done to make this a reality from an engineering perspective. And so really, I think as a result of a lot of this coordination between myself and Jack's team and Circle and, you know, some of our advisors and things like this, we were able to do this. So yeah, you know, it's not a Circle chain like that. You know, like they pretty much, I think, as an entity, and like other issuers, like really look for what you already get on Ethereum, right? Which is a smart contracting, you know, capability, right, on this like base layer that's like relatively, you know, secure, and there's all of these, you know, properties. They're looking for that, but in another context. And so we could talk a little bit more about shared security and kind of how that fits into this picture, which is also a huge part of the story. But yeah, I think like the kind of TLDR there is that they were just trying to solve this, you know, challenge, like how do we issue in Cosmos? And I think a lot of other issuers are trying to also solve the same sort of challenge.
Talking of other issuers that try to solve the same problem, I think that's a very good question here that we can pick up here. Is Noble going to add additional stablecoins after the initial USDC launch? Technically, it could do all stablecoins being an independent smart contract, no? And I also want to add to this question, maybe if you could guide us through the process of what it takes to list an asset, let's say just for fun, USDT, Tether would say we want to do the same as Circle. What would the process look like?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Mistress. So another big part of the story I should have mentioned earlier, but is also the Osmosis team. So Osmosis built the Token Factory module, which is a Cosmos SDK module, which does provide this kind of smart contracting kind of framework on the Cosmos SDK to do things like minting, burning, etc. And so Noble does leverage this. And yes, technically speaking, on Noble itself, you could have multiple of these sort of modules that do something relatively similar to what you'll see with USDC kind of issuance happening in Cosmos. And so, yes, I mean, this is like exactly sort of the vision for Noble, right? Like extremely purpose built for this like one very specific use case. Obviously in Cosmos, we're seeing a lot of app chains that, are building a lot of interesting, creative kind of applications and products, different, DeFi apps, things like this. And that's amazing. But something to consider with Noble is that we're taking a different approach. We're doing like one thing, like one very, very specific thing. I'd like to think that it's like the most application specific blockchain that might exist. Maybe the Cosmos Hub could potentially also claim this with respect to security. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what we're trying to build. Something that would support, indeed, technically speaking, a variety of assets sort of living on the Noble chain.
And is there like sort of a difference? So to stick to the example that I just started to talk about, so say Tether would say, hey, we would like to issue USDT via Noble. What would the process look like? Would they reach out to you? And what if a permissionless stablecoin wants to be listed, say IST? Is there like a different process of getting issued via the Noble blockchain?
Yeah. So for something that's maybe like a Tether or another kind of like asset that it has a more straightforward, again, like what they do on other chains, which, by the way, just like side note for Tether, I recently learned a lot of actually the volume is on Tron, which I had no idea. Fun fact. And so, exactly how they sort of issue on a chain like Tron or Ethereum, we would kind of bring to Cosmos via Noble. And so, right, so we would, work with them in this hypothetical context to, again, build, kind of the capabilities that they need from an issuance perspective. On Noble, leveraging things like Token Factory, IBC, things like this. And that's, how it would work. It would be very straightforward. We've learned a lot. I would argue over the past 8 months working to build this USDC capacity. So at this point, like all of that experience and knowledge can be pretty quickly replicable because we've sort of gone through the motions of solving for a lot of anticipated challenges, right? Like around routing, for example, around just kind of some challenges that might come up as a result of the nature of IBC. And so we could do that in a very straightforward manner. Something more permissionless like DAI or IST could also be supported, definitely. However, it would be more of different. It would be a different process in terms of development, right? So I think it would take a little bit more protocol engineering, a little bit more sort of creativity around how you kind of fit IBC to support something that's more permissionless, especially for something maybe that's Ethereum native, like a DAI. That I think would take a little bit more work, but definitely possible and definitely something we've considered and I'm excited about. But there's also, I think, an order of operations here, right? Like in terms of what you prioritize. So yeah, I mean, it's early days, but these are all very possible paths to go down.
And before diving deeper now into interchain security, let's wrap this topic up. So at what point, like timeline-wise, will we like actually be able to use native USDC in Cosmos? When will be day X, so to say? And can you already like share any alpha, give us any hints? Are there already conversations about other assets coming to the interchain, or are you right now just focusing on USDC and there is no interest right now in launching another asset on Noble?
Definitely. So around, I guess the second question, there's definitely interest on sort of other assets that Noble could support, and we're talking about that. However, I will say that the priority very much is getting the USDC issuance right. I don't have a date right now. We'll share that soon on when kind of USDC is going live, kind of in the Cosmos ecosystem, but it'll be relatively soon. So as a result of that, we just want to get that right. We want to make sure every wallet, every block explorer, every front end is kind of listing USDC properly, that users know exactly how to do token transfers kind of from one chain to another, that Noble itself is properly supporting all of this IBC activity in terms of like routing the asset, things like this. So again, like there's a lot of things to get right for that. And so that's our number one priority. But yeah, there should be other kind of interesting things to share in a little bit. But I know, you know, in the community, I've been around long enough. People just want alpha every day. So I don't know. We'll have to just you know, take things as they come. So you know, there's gonna be more to share, but definitely very exciting times for the ecosystem.
100% agree. And in regards now to interchain security, what I like about this whole story is that you were, as you mentioned in the beginning, very much involved with interchain security. And also, if I remember it right, when the chain got announced, the initial plan was also to launch with interchain security, right? So the excitement was huge because at Cosmos, all of a sudden, we saw so many announcements in regards of launching with interchain security. Quicksilver said we are launching with interchain security. Noble, which didn't have a name back then, said we are going to launch with interchain security. Then Stride did the same, and now all of a sudden we see projects stepping back from this commitment. So, for example, Quicksilver said, yeah, we will wait and see, and eventually we will also launch interchain security. And I kind of have a feeling that this will be also the same strategy of Noble here, so that you will wait, right, and see what will happen, and eventually you will leverage interchain security at some point. So what happened? What was the reason why you said we can't or we won't commit to interchain security yet anymore?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm very happy to correct some of the assumptions that are floating around. So I mean, I'll back it up a little bit. Again, you know, I was around when you know, there was a lot of FUD around interchain security about a year ago, when kind of informal kind of shared that they would be building the feature. You know, as a result of a grant from the Interchain Foundation. This was, you know, a big sort of milestone, I would argue, or a moment for the ecosystem. And then immediately there was a lot of FUD, right? Like immediately, you know, so, you know, as my role in my capacity, kind of go to market, taking this to market. There was an account, I don't know if you remember, Blue Kirby, and a
Oh yeah.
non-account, yeah, who had a lot of followers, and he'd sort of troll me like almost every day. It is a he, by the way. I know that for a fact, although I don't know who he is. And so he would kind of troll, you know, no one's going to want to use this. This is useless. This is silly, etc. Right? So I've and others at Informal, and you know, have worked extremely hard to first of all get it right from an engineering perspective and a development perspective, but also to get it right from like a usefulness perspective. And you know, now you have other folks kind of that are working towards that, like the Atom Accelerator, and of course the Atom 2.0 group, which I was also a part of. And so, just to be clear, like interchain security is an incredibly important part of the Noble story. And so, you know, I just want to emphasize that. And so I can just give some background on why we just decided to kind of launch without interchain security. So first of all, the plan was always to have a couple other projects go first, and then Noble would sort of be maybe second, third, kind of in line. And that was always the plan. So there was some delays around the actual development of the feature. Of course, it is live on the hub yet, but Neutron still hasn't launched. You know, there's no project actually using it right now. And so that is something that we, from the very beginning, made a condition of like Noble using interchain security. And so timing just didn't work out, because we want to launch native USDC before or sooner than like the Neutron and like others will be using interchain security. So there is like a sequencing kind of thing going on here that we're tracking for, and so that's one thing. Secondly, there was just a little bit kind of considerations around like the changes to slashing that were proposed pretty kind of late in the game, in terms of having that be part of the feature. It was proposed, I think, like month and a half ago, and this just sort of came out of nowhere, and we just wanted to kind of consider, okay, like what are the implications? Not to say that it's less or more secure, kind of taking out automated slashing, just to say that, again, like let's wait and see, right? And so all of these dependencies, I think, are extremely important to consider when working with large institutions and entities that we, I think, that are extremely crypto native and kind of work very deeply in the open source context, we kind of deal with, right, regularly, things changing and kind of up, all of these dependencies coming up, and we just accommodate them. But I think, again, like when you're working with like a large organization, you just have to be a little bit more conservative and cautious and just take things as they come. And so yeah, I mean, again, like interchain security is part of the roadmap. Like I think it's actually kind of different than Quicksilver, which is, I think, maybe more leaning towards like not using it. I'm not exactly sure. We are very much going to be using it. It's just a matter of when. So that's one thing. Even the way we've launched Noble is with that consideration in mind, right? Like our validator set, they're all Cosmos Hub validators. That was always like a very, very important thing for us for the kind of putting together this permission set. So yeah, I mean, again, like the interchain security is part of the Noble story. It always has been from day one. I kind of, again, worked very hard to make sure that this would have adoption kind of in the early days. And that's not going to change, I think, with Noble. So yeah.
So to wrap this up a little bit, so the reason why you didn't launch with interchain security as planned directly was like a timing problem, then the /regulatory problem, but you really will leverage interchain security at some point in the future.
That is the plan. Yes, that is the plan.
Nice to hear that. And speaking now of interchain security and about the future when leveraging interchain security, we have a question in the chat in regards to that. Hi, Yuri and Jelena. I have a question. If Noble adopts interchain security, would Atom stakers get USDC rewards? Actually, a good question.
Yep. Yes, they would. So they would get USDC rewards from the USDC kind of issuance happening at Noble. And then also, we're also considering like if and when Noble supports other native assets, would sort of stakers and validators get rewards in that asset? I also think that is a possibility that I would, I'm looking to kind of champion. It just creates very interesting incentive alignment. It increases adoption of the asset. Like it's just kind of makes a lot of sense. So yeah, definitely.
Nice. And to wrap this topic up with interchain security and validators, you mentioned that as of now, there is a permission set of validators, right? So you handpick these validators that are also validators of the Cosmos Hub. So and you mentioned that, again, as of now, the set is permission, but will this change at some point in the future? And what if you will finally leverage interchain security? How will this be played out? Will you use, for example, layered security that you say, okay, the existing permission set will be combined with the security that the Cosmos Hub provides? Or yeah, what will this look like? Is there also like the chance for other validators to join? Because at some point the set won't be permissioned anymore. So yeah, would love to pick your brain on this.
Definitely. So there's a couple things going on. So Informal has made it a priority to sort of create kind of tooling and support for this context, which is, you have your own validator set, whether or not it's permissioned, that's kind of besides the point, but you have your own validator set and you want to kind of transition to interchain security. That's already kind of a path that's available. And so that's exactly what we will do. And we just based on kind of current development and kind of current timelines, we intend to use replicated security. So that's kind of V1, which is the entire hub validator set, validating a consumer chain. I think it's really important to us to have like maximal kind of security when it comes to the kind of staked kind of value of assets. And right now, V1 just seems like the best bet. If things change, then that's good. But right now, kind of having the entire hub validator set, supporting the chain is obviously very important to us. And so, yeah, I think, again, like this is all something that's in progress, independent of Noble, and we just intend to, use it as soon as we just feel comfortable with the reliability and stability of the feature. And it's again, it's always been part of the plan, but I think sometimes communications can make people, of course, and communication is very important. It's very important to me, by the way, in terms of like telling the right story, having a proper vision. And so I'm happy that we can finally, we can correct the record. And remember, we actually just came out of stealth mode like almost a week ago. So technically speaking, now is when we're correcting the record. And so I'm happy to be doing this.
Speaking of the right communication, so I would also be super curious in the communications that you've had with all the regulators and with all of these institutions in the past couple of weeks and months. Also because all of a sudden I woke up in the morning and then I've seen USDC struggling to keep its peg. So my question here is, what were the conversations all about back then when this scenario all of a sudden happened? Were you scared, or were you like, hey, don't worry, on Monday we are back at $1? Or what were the conversations back then, and what are these ongoing conversations that I believe you guys have right now? Because there is a lot of fear in the market about every worst case scenario right now, which is kind of a narrative that we see in the financial industry generally.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of PTSD from Terra collapsing and seeing UST go to zero. And a lot of people, I think, were kind of reminded of that horrible, horrible event as soon as we saw kind of USDC depegging. The reality is like the mechanics of kind of what happened with the depeg over the weekend with USDC are extremely different than what we saw with UST depegging and eventually going to zero. Actually, just on a side note, I think this is kind of a funny anecdote. When UST collapsed, this was in May, right? Last year, I was actually living in LA and paying rent in UST, right? And then it depegged, and then eventually went to zero. And I sold, eventually. It wasn't so bad. I mean, I sold pretty quickly, but still lost, and I mean, other people lost way more. And anyways, so I go to the guy that was renting my unit, and I just asked him. So that was a very unfortunate situation. I hope you kind of got out with the UST. I've been kind of paying you for rent. Can you take USDC now? And I was expecting him to say no, right? Because you had one stable coin that went to zero. And, now, there's another stable coin that exists, but he doesn't necessarily know the difference, but he accepted. And here we had USDC saving my, my life in that situation because I preferred to kind of pay with crypto at that time for my rent. And so the point being that these are two completely different assets. Of course, they were supposed to do the same thing. They don't. And at the end of the day, of course, it was like very jarring to see kind of how UCC was impacted as a result of the kind of existing crisis with the banking industry in the U.S. And I think it's been such a learning experience, not just for kind of Circle, but every other entity which is every entity that depends on banks in modern kind of capitalist society. Just a learning experience to be cautious. If you're a company, operating in the crypto space and you're in the US, have multiple bank accounts, first of all, at least 3 probably, just in case, right? Something happens. And so anyways, all of this was very, very jarring. However, personally, I was still pretty much betting on the peg being kind of resumed on Monday, which it did, or maybe it was Tuesday. Yeah, I mean, to people that kind of traded with on that over the weekend, and then kind of had the peg resume in the following Monday, Tuesday. very smart trade because I mean, at the end of the day, if you understand how USDC works, you understand that there is this guarantee of one-to-one redemptions that is a lot more legally enforced. The worst thing that could have possibly happened is that over that weekend, $40+ billion worth of USDC were were going to be redeemed on the Monday. That didn't happen. There was an outflow of quite a decent amount, but it didn't collapse because, of course, there was always kind of something backing it. And so, again, it was definitely an interesting learning experience, and I think it makes everybody, I think, stronger and wiser in the end. So.
Yeah, 100%. Also, because you also start to rethink your strategy over and over again. I remember in January, February, we were like so confident, putting all of our money into USD and on Anchor, thinking that 7 or 8% on a stablecoin is like sustainable when the rest of the market only gives you like 0.1 or 0.2% at the time. So we learned. Speaking of learning and about more questions, so there are some questions in the chat, for example, from Kavaskus and Mr. S again. So we will pick them up in a second. But first of all, let's talk about the bracelet you have and about the airdrop. So yeah, what can you tell us?
So okay. I'm the most excited for this part. No, I'm just kidding. This has been a fabulous conversation so far. So we're obviously preparing for native USDC to come to Cosmos via Noble, and just to get everything kind of prepared, we wanted to do a campaign that would be more of a kind of community-oriented kind of campaign around kind of Noble and something to kind of bring the Cosmos ecosystem together and just generate some sort of conversation and enthusiasm. And so Noble does not have a native token. So, we're eventually going to be using the atom validator set for security. We don't need a token for security purposes in terms of in the proof of stake context. And so, again, we wanted to issue some token that is not meant to have economic value or be kind of obtainable in some market context, but that could exist and we could play with. So we had this idea. Actually, Zaki and I workshopped this quite a lot. So Zaki, big shout out for helping me kind of work on this Friends campaign. But and we're on the Friends podcast, so I guess it works out pretty well. But it's spelled differently. And so what we're going to be doing, so starting this week, we're going to start distributing these Friends tokens to a few different pools on a few different dexes. So this week we've just been setting up IBC connections and relayers and making sure wallets are kind of prepared. So we're going to start distributing those tokens tomorrow. And then on Monday, we're going to do the airdrop to all eligible Axelar USDC holders across, I think, 10 or so chains. And so the cap will be 500 Friends tokens, and each of those Friends tokens are eligible for a physical friendship bracelet. So this is not a digital bracelet. This is a physical one, and I can show you if you'd like. So these are the bracelets. They're actually quite nice and well made. I was a little bit nervous that they're gonna, but they're actually very, very good quality and very nice. So we'll be distributing those to any Friends token holder that wants to redeem their token for a bracelet. And I'm also working with the Swift protocol team from Juno to do the redemption process as well. So very much a community effort. The Notional team is working on the airdrop, working with the Juno team on redemptions. I have a couple amazing designers and front-end developers that are going to be spinning up a landing page for the redemption process. So stay tuned. That should be a lot of fun. So we just need more friendship bracelets in Cosmos, I think. I think if every project had a friendship bracelet, an Atom friendship bracelet, a Juno friendship bracelet, I think it could be great. So.
Yeah, 100%. Also totally agree on that. I think that's a very lovely idea. And again, your token also does not serve for any security as of now. It's like really to just give something back to the community, which got also like significantly misunderstood. I think people are a little bit pampered with airdrops nowadays, and then you see what's going on in the Ethereum ecosystem where people get like thousands of dollars, and yeah, I think a lot of people misunderstood that, but it's like lovely to see to also have like physical items in the real world. That somewhat helps you to identify with the Cosmos ecosystem. But yeah, let's pick up some questions that are in the chat. So for example, from Cavascos, my question, why Noble can't Atom itself handle native USDC? Shouldn't this be a common good?
Can't Atom itself handle native USDC? So there's no ability right now on the hub to do asset issuance. Like there's no kind of module or Cosmos framework or really anything that would support this. There is, this vision of the hub that has been hotly debated. Keeping it minimal, keeping it, hub minimalism. I think based on how things went with Atom 2.0 and just generally discussions is the path forward. So it doesn't really make sense to issue on the hub itself. But that's why Noble will kind of serve this need and again be aligned with the Cosmos hub itself as a result of interchain security. So yeah, and then shouldn't this be a common good? Yeah, I mean, of course, this should be a common good. Kind of permissionless sort of like kind of access and kind of ability to transfer USDC across different chains. There is the common good and the common kind of the public infrastructure here really is IBC at the end of the day. And so that's what we're leveraging. And I think it's all very positive.
Last question for today before wrapping it up and before you can shill your socials to us to stay tuned and to stay on top of everything. Last question from Mr. S. Will holders of native stablecoins on Noble also receive any rewards APR-wise? That would literally blow my mind.
I think I mentioned this earlier, but on Noble itself, there won't be this type of activity, right, around DeFi and things like this. So that is something that would exist on like other chains, kind of an ecosystem. That would like in terms of like kind of getting yield for your USDC, that would happen elsewhere. We haven't really talked about anything like this happening in Noble, but I don't know, something to think about. But I don't know, good. I feel like Mr. S always has really good ideas, so just DM me and we can talk about it.
Speaking of DMing you, where could he do so? So maybe you could share some links.
I am extremely active on Twitter. So Twitter would be great. Just DM me on Twitter. I check my Twitter, even the kind of second inbox for people that I don't follow pretty often. So just DM me there and or ping me or whatever on Telegram. I can send my Telegram here if you guys want. Actually, where do I share it, Yuri?
Into the comment section. But I can also add your Twitter handle and your Telegram handle into the show description.
Perfect.
After the show, but here I see it now. So in case some people want to go straight ahead, here you go. But yeah, Jelena, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. Thank you so much for diving deeper into this. I'm very excited about seeing native USDC in the Cosmos ecosystem very, very soon. Finally, I was pumped since the very beginning, since it got announced at Cosmoverse. And yeah, speaking of Cosmoverse, hope to see you in Istanbul this year.
Absolutely. I can't wait. Thank you, Yuri. And we'll talk soon.